And first of all, what is LLP? What is limited liability partnership?
So these are the two benefits which summed up in an LLP.
How can somebody decide whether they should go for LL?
Once you move from partnership to an LLP, LLP becomes a very, very formal because it gets registered under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs.
FMR Finance Weekly. Simplify your life with our financial advice.
So let's move to the next kind of structure, which is LLP, which is Limited Liability Partnership Firm. So for what kind of entrepreneurs is it an ideal choice, and why? And first of all, what is LLP? What is Limited Liability Partnership?
All right. So limited liability partnership, or LLP, this is a unique business structure that combines the benefit of the partnership firm and a limited liability protection of a company. So these are the two benefits which summed up in an LLP, and it was introduced in India in 2008 under the Limited Liability Partnership Act. So it offers flexible and scalable option for small and medium-sized businesses. Partners in a partnership firm were exposed to unlimited liabilities. With LLPs being brought into picture, the partners' liability were limited to the extent of their shareholding only, and not their personal assets were not exposed. If we were to talk about some of the key elements which make LLP a very, very unique proposition, and not overly complicated, but also at the same time friendly to the partners and the entrepreneurs in India, is first one is the separate legal entity. Okay, so an LLP is considered a separate legal entity from its partners. So it has its own existence, distinct from its partners. It has its own name, PAN number, everything would be distinct from its partner. So that will allow that LLP to own assets, enter into contract in its own name, or sue or be sued in its own name. In that sense, the partners are not liable for those acts of the LLP that way. Then the second aspect which we have been speaking about is the limited liability. That's a key advantage, very, very crucial advantage that LLP has over a partnership. So the liability of the partners is limited to the agreed contribution to the LLP. They are not personally liable for the debts and liabilities of the LLP. Then the flexible management. So once LLPs are formed, as I said, that they are unique in its existence, they're separate legal entity. So they can hire a management to run the show. It's not required that the partners only need to step in and run the show completely. They can hire a professional management structure. They can bring them in. They can run the operations. The management can run the operations and report into the partners of the LLP. Then, as the only similar point with regard to the partnership firm is that the minimum number of partners required are 2, but there are no limit on the number of partners which are required. Second, as with the partnership agreement, LLP also requires a partnership agreement, the LLP agreement. So that LLP agreement would outline the rights, duties and obligations of all the partners. So all the things which we spoke about in the partnership firm, the same will apply to the LLP agreement also. So then the last one, which the unique feature which LLP has, in case of demise or in case of withdrawal of any partner from the LLP, because it has a separate legal entity, it will enjoy a perpetual succession. So it will continue to exist even if there one or more partners have left the organization, or they have died, or whatever that it should not affect the compositions of the partner. The minimum number of partners would still be required. So that criteria would definitely have to be fulfilled. But other than that, the perpetual succession will allow the LLP to continue its existence till the perpetuity, the infinity, that way.
How can somebody decide whether they should go for LLP versus the partnership? I'm just keen to understand, let's say when an entrepreneur is deciding on the structure, how can they decide whether LLP is more relevant for them or the partnership?
When they start off the journey, a partnership firm can always be converted into an LLP later on. But If they are expecting the business size to grow from a small, remain between a small or medium-sized enterprise, and they want the convenience of a limited liability structure and a formal incorporated structure, then LLP makes sense for them. Instead, partnership is more of an informal kind of a setup where it's only governed by the agreement, and agreement can undergo a change. But the liabilities are unlimited for the partners. There can be cases where there are unrelated people who are entering into a partnership, and you never know. You can't trust the other person. So then LLPs definitely make sense for you in that sense that your liabilities will be limited only to the extent of your shareholding. So if you start small, then you can go with partnership. And as you grow, you can convert that partnership into an LLP. Once you've moved from partnership to an LLP becomes a very, very formal because it gets registered under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So it's the same incorporation process as we have for the private limited company. You won't be able to close that LLP simply by dissolving the partnership agreement.
Fair enough. Okay. And then let's move to the next structure, which is the private limited companies. I don't know, are these mainly for big firms? Are they chosen more for their credibility or growth? So what are the key differences, and in which scenario can people choose private limited companies?
Sure. So private limited companies, they provide a separate legal entity status similar to as an LLP. So it provides a separate legal entity status to the business and limited liability protection to its shareholders. But now, private limited company, it is governed by the Companies Act 2013 and Companies Act 1956, which was amended and updated in Companies Act 2013. So private limited company offers several advantages and is commonly used by entrepreneurs and businesses who are looking for growth and scalability. So for those enterprises who are looking for growth and scalability, this is a very, very relevant structure. When I say growth and scalability, both in terms of its operations, business operations, as well as for fundraising point of view also. So in case they're looking at expanding the business that way by raising private equity firms or bringing in fresh capital, then this would be an appropriate structure. Okay, so key consideration, first two I already spoke about, that they share a separate legal entity and they have the limited liability protection for their shareholders. Then the minimum shareholders is the third criteria which needs to be aware of. So a private limited company must have a minimum of 2 shareholders. Same as the partnership firm or an LLP, out here also you require at least 2 shareholders. To your one of your previous questions was regarding can 2 NRIs form an LLP? No. 2 NRIs and 2 NRIs cannot form an LLP or a private limited company. There has to be one Indian present out there. So that's the distinction between partnership firm and an LLP. So you require one Indian person, Indian origin person or Indian citizen to be present out there in that partnership, LLP and a private limited company. Okay. So then comes the share capital. So private limited companies can issue shares to its shareholders, which will represent the ownership in the company. The company can raise capital by issuing shares to investors, family members, or employees, anyone. ESOPs, they come across those terms, the employee stock options. So those shares can be issued to the employees or to the investors or to the family members, to anyone, and company can raise the capital by itself. Now, company gets governance of the company. It is handled by the board of directors. So a private limited company needs to have a board of directors consisting of at least 2 directors. So these 2 directors are responsible for managing company's affairs, making key decisions, and ensuring compliances to the statutory requirements. Apart from that, it will have annual compliances also. So you will need to file your annual financial statements every year. You will have to hold your annual general meetings where you will need to discuss the roadmap of the future, as well as what has gone right for you or not right for you in the previous year. You will have to define all of them. You'll have to maintain proper accounting records. You will have to do a lot of GST compliances, TDS compliances. All those compliances will have to be done. The private limited company is appropriate for anyone who is looking for scalability and growth.
But let's say if somebody starts as a partnership, can they change their structure to, let's say, a private limited at a later point, or?
They can, but then they will have to apply for the name search first in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, whether that name is available to them. They can translate their partnership structure into a private limited company by getting themselves incorporated as a private limited company.
I think that's very helpful to understand the private limited companies and how they operate and how they are different from the partnership firms. So we'll move to the last structure, which is Section 8 companies. So if you can help our viewers to understand what Section 8 companies mean and what are the kind of key benefits or challenges.
Sure. So when I say Section 8 companies, so Section 8 refers to the Companies Act 2013. So it is a type of a non-profit organization that is formed for promoting charitable, educational, scientific, religious, or any other social causes. So for those purposes, this Section 8 company is formed. So the primary objective of this Section 8 company is to apply its profit or income towards promoting the objectives and not to distribute dividends to its members. So all that is earned is immediately deployed back to the causes it's supporting. Okay, so the challenges or the benefits of having this is that first, that being it a non-profit organization, a non-profit nature, so it promotes the charitable and the social objectives. The second benefit is the limited liability. Like any other type of company, be it limited liability partnership or the private limited company we were talking about, Section 8 company also enjoys that benefit of the limited liability. So then, since it's a non-profit nature, no dividends. The surplus generated from its operation reinvested back to meeting its objective. There are a lot of licensing requirements. The challenges part comes across is that to establish a Section 8 companies, an application has to be made to the Registrar of Companies for obtaining that license. So ROC evaluates the proposed activities and objectives of the company to ensure that they are in line with the requirements of the Section 8 company. In case there's some mismatch, the activities proposed are not matching with what the Section 8 company should be, so then the application gets denied, or it needs they require some clarifications or rectifications required to be made. Post that, which ROC will grant a license. The other challenge is towards the name restrictions. So the name of the Section 8 company must reflect its non-profit nature, and it should not resemble or be similar to any existing company or trademark. So certain words to identify its non-profit nature would be like foundation, association, society, council. These are the commonly referred or commonly used names in the Section 8 companies. So when you're applying for a name, you need to attach or affix these names either at the beginning, middle, or at the end, so that anybody can readily identify this as a Section 8 company. Trust, you say, or do you say other things, but these words will ensure that your Section 8 company name gets approved by the ROC.
Fair enough. So I think thank you so much, Mr. Garg. In this episode, we spoke about private limited companies and also Section 8 companies. And for the viewers, I would request that please go and check the first episode as well. These two episodes, we have covered 5 different kind of structures. In the upcoming episodes, we will talk about what are the necessary registrations which are required in case if you want to carry these business activities. So Mr. Garg, I'll wind up here. Thank you so much. As always, it's a great pleasure, and thank you for enlightening us. I will see you in the upcoming episodes.
Thank you. Bye.
FMR Finance Weekly. Simplify your life with our financial advice.